Hey guys, it's Sadie. Welcome back to Hear Me Out. This week, we're going to delve into how I find new music. And this is actually something I get asked a good deal about by people and my friends because I do make monthly playlists. And with that, normally I average probably about 55 songs on a monthly playlist. And I've been doing this since 2023. And on even actually last year, I looked back and I averaged like 90 songs on a playlist. And the vast majority of them, I would say maybe like 70% of them, are songs that came out recently or that I just have never heard before. And so that like I always throw on other ones that I rediscovered or my hyperfixation songs that I've known maybe like for 2 months at that point. But yeah, the vast majority is new artists, new songs, a lot of them being one-offs as well. But so, and I tend to post them on my Instagram every month. So sometimes people will click on them, and I do get people asking me, like, oh, where does this variety come from? You know what I mean? How do you find new music? So that's what we're going to get into today. And don't get me wrong, I am certainly guilty when it comes to streaming a lot of the same artists. Like, another thing about finding new music is I'm not necessarily aiming to find my new favorite artist where their entire discography resonates with me or I like their entire discography. I That's always a pleasant surprise when it happens, but that's not exactly the case. But one-off songs or one-off albums I stumble across as well. Which also, side note, I want to put the argument out there that when you listen to an album for the first time, you should 1 trillion% listen to it front to back. I'm such a proponent of artists made that album to be listened to in a certain order. Like, track placing and numbering your tracks is so important. And yet, I feel like some people sleep on it. And especially because you're robbing yourself of the opportunity if you know how like music theory, there's a term for it, and I don't know, but it's when the beginning instrumentals of your album is the same as the end instrumentals on the last song of that album, and then it loops into each other. You miss a lot of that stuff if you don't listen to it in order, and you never know like when they segue into one another. So reasons like that, for example, I 100% believe that you should listen to an album in order. So anytime I do come across a new album, that is what I do. So, first and foremost, movies and TV shows, but mostly movies. Just because I'm not that great with sitting down long term and binging shows, so it's just a matter of like more exposure to movies than leads me to have more music coming out of them. I will say though, like I am a miniseries fan. I think it's a lot easier to sit down when you only have like 5 to 8 episodes, especially now that series are pretty short or seasons. It's a lot easier to sit down and commit to that. So I will do that. Let me know if you have any mini series recs. But so movies and TV shows, and like a good soundtrack goes such a long way. And again, I'm dying on this hill. I never understand when people don't invest money, their movie making budget, into good music for so many reasons. I don't understand that. But I do watch like a decent amount of movies, definitely active on Letterboxd. And so I will pause a movie. And if I'm watching it on streaming or something, I will pause a movie just to Shazam the song or something like that. And if I'm in the movie theaters, I also do this really often. I will write the lyrics down if I can't like Shazam in the moment, or like I also just don't want to be on my phone too much with the brightness. I'll kind of slide into my notes app real quick and I'll write the lyrics down so then I can Safari them later. And or honestly, Spotify has that new thing where you can like put the lyrics in the search bar and it will do a lyric search for you as well. Either way, doesn't matter. I get a lot of music that way. For example, Jungle has been I would say honestly one of my favorite bands, that I will say I go through jungle phases more than consistently listening to them. But when I'm in that phase, I am in that phase. So, for example, Nerve, if you're not familiar with that movie, that came out in 2016 or so. So I was pretty young. I remember seeing that in theaters though. Life changed. And I discovered Jungle from that movie. And this was like way before Volcano. And so then when Volcano came out and Back on 74 with their music video and everything went viral, I was like, oh my God, like these are my people. They're finally getting the credit they deserve. But that's just like an example of full bands. That was one of the rare situations where I did like their entire discography and I just went down a rabbit hole. Another thing I watched recently that I will recommend from a music perspective is The Buccaneers. That's an Apple TV show. I think you can also watch it on Hulu, depending on your subscription. But they actually had an original soundtrack. And original soundtracks I think are really hit or miss. But this one in particular, this has like Sharon Von Etten on it. It has Gracie Abrams. It has some less discovered artists as well that then gave me the exposure. It was a good balance of people I knew and really loved, and then people I didn't know but ended up really loving. So that one, even though I don't necessarily think all the music was placed, like when it actually came to placing the music and matching it with a mood in the show, I don't think that I actually did a good job of that, but the music itself set some kind of tone for sure. And I do remember when the Gracie Abrams song, and that one's called Cedar, and I actually knew that before going into the show, and I didn't really think I was going to watch it, but then I ended up having time. My mom and I watched that when I was home for spring break, and so when that song came on in the scene, I remember being taken aback, gasping, and just being like, oh my God. So that one definitely had me in a chokehold because I knew the music going into it and I knew all the lyrics. So it's kind of funny both ways. I really enjoy when I don't know a song's going to be in it or I'm just not anticipating it. A song I already know is in it, that sets the tone in such a different way than also when you recognize in the moment a great song that you don't know and you're so excited to look it up later. There are so many movie and TV show soundtracks that I give my applause to, but for now I'll leave you with those two. Okay, I'm actually an idiot. I just paused and went to have a sip of a Celsius and spilled it all over me, and I'm trying not to be upset with myself because there's no way that's not an omen to not have Celsius. Like, I haven't had one in a few weeks at least. I rarely drink them anymore because I used to be addicted to them in high school, and so I have them sparingly, and I can't not take that as a sign that the first time I have it in weeks I absolutely drench myself in it. Like, what actually just happened? Now it's in my hair, it's on one of my favorite sweatshirts. I really hope this comes out. But moving on, cheers. Okay, the next way I find music, I do this quite often, and it really makes me in tune to my surroundings as well. But I recognize songs in stores, and then I Shazam it immediately. And there's definitely places where I'm a repeat offender with this. Specifically, there is this like Free People Anthropology warehouse where it's like secondhand stuff that they can't sell because there's a little tear in it or something. In particular, that has one of the best playlists I've ever heard. And I go there probably quarterly in the year because it's kind of far from my house, but every time I go, I have really good finds. And randomly, like, I associate that store with finding good music every time I go. And because a lot of things are discounted and you buy in bulk, and so I'll be holding all these clothes and I'll be rummaging for my phone in my pockets because I'll hear a song come on. And again, I'm trying to write the lyrics down because it's just quiet enough where I can't Shazam it. So I'm trying to scramble for my phone and write it in my notes app before the chorus is done and I can't hear it as well or something like that. So that's funny. That just sticks out in my head as I always find great music there. But I also always recommend going to coffee shops and sitting in coffee shops Actually, my senior year of high school, I got really into this. There was a Starbucks around my house. I will say though, like the more niche the coffee shop is, if you go and support small businesses, which I do try to do, they tend to have better playlists because I think Starbucks might just have a corporate playlist. But either way, my senior year of high school, I would go to the Starbucks around my house, and it was a really small one. There were only like 3 tables in there. And so I would sit and I would do my homework, and I would leave my phone open on Shazam in the store. I would just leave it open, and anytime I heard a good song, which was often, hence why I kept going back. I have full playlists from this one Starbucks over the course of the year, and it's literally called Coffee House Background Music. And it's a great, I would say, generally cohesive vibe. So then I would just hold down my screen. Like I would have it next to my computer. I'd be working on my computer, and anytime I was in tune or a beat kind of caught my ear and brought me out of the work trance, I would just hold down on the phone and immediately add it to the coffee house background playlist. So I highly recommend doing that. I think that's a really underrated way of finding music, is doing it almost like in person. Like this feels a little more immersive, and you do have to listen to full songs and stuff. It is different than if you were just perusing Spotify or scrolling through TikTok or like New Music Fridays and things like that. I think this is a little bit different because what I had just said is when you can just kind of rapidly click through, you don't necessarily give a song a full chance if you're only listening to the first 15 seconds and those 15 seconds don't captivate you, and you're kind of like, on to the next. And maybe I'm assuming people do this too, because like I will sit in my bed and I'll be like, all right, I'm in the mood to find new music, and so I'll like click click click, and sometimes if the first 15 minutes doesn't like sit with me and I don't really like it, I'll go to the chorus and I'll be, if I'm still not vibing it, whatever, next. But this makes you sit in it, and also it's less algorithm based. That's another really big thing, is that I find it's really hard to find new music nowadays because the algorithms of everything, but Spotify is quite good at it, of recommending you songs. It is hyper tailored to you to the point where it almost doesn't recommend new music at all. It'll recommend music from artists that maybe you haven't listened to before too much, but you do know them. Like when you're looking for new sounds completely, I find that Spotify is honestly not great for that. You really have to go out of your way and go down rabbit holes, which I'll kind of get to in a second, of Spotify. But on my day list and stuff, I used to get such a variety and a lot of quote unquote original content, in the sense that I hadn't seen it before and accessed it before. But now it's just my most played songs or my day list, and it's really annoying to me. Like I will go into the app and it'll show basically a version of my liked songs. It'll basically just pick a mood and like go through my liked songs that I've already listened to a million times and put that in there. So the algorithms keep getting better in their head probably, but in my head I'm like, well, this is washed out. What's going on? So go to a local coffee shop or a chain if you must, whatever's most convenient for you, and just kind of keep your ears open. Okay, I do have to give credit where it's due in terms of getting music from my sisters. I will say though, it's not an across the board thing. I would say I kind of get specific genres. So my older sister, I would say I kind of get house music, maybe not house music in the sense of EDM, but just kind of like what I call big room music, like what you would put in the background of a party. It doesn't always have to be EDM, but I will say that she has a pretty decent grasp on that as well. So I'll kind of get that from my older sister. And then my younger sister, I would say I get more country folk kind of music from her. It's interesting because I will go to concerts with them one-on-one. We don't necessarily go the three of us all the time, and it very much reflects itself in that. My younger sister and I, we went to camp, for example, and Lizzie McAlpine, I mean, she's not country, obviously, but she's definitely in the more alternative category and a very different sound compared to EDM and house. And so I also laugh a little bit about this because my older sister goes to a smaller private school, whereas I go to a public big state school. So I feel like I should be the one giving house music to her. But I remember she came back from study abroad and the nightlife there is different, and they just have, again, a way to get out of this American algorithm solely, because we I do think the people I know, at least, and myself, have a tendency to stay in an American music bubble, or that of Western, like Northwestern Europe, I would say. And that minimizes you to so much if you're not open to other languages or other kind of cultural sounds. So Amelia came back from Florence and she did give me some good, like, house, quote unquote, big room is what I call it, Rex, and I thank her for that. Okay, staying in the vein of family and giving credit where it's due there, I would say my parents are both great for rock. Not just classic rock, but a bit of like pop rock, just a little bit of everything when it comes to that. I won't try to put too much of a label on it, but I would say, like, my mom, for example, she exposed me to Melissa Etheridge and Alanis Morissette. You know, the joke where it's like, oh, what radicalized you? Well, Alanis Morissette, when I was, maybe 15, 14, hearing, like, You Ought to Know for the first time, out of body experience, totally out of body. Fun fact, did you know that Alanis Morissette actually recorded that in one take? She just went in the studio, angry belted that, and practically walked out. That's insane to do on a first try. But again, my mom had that random fun fact tucked away too. So I thought that was kind of fun. In terms of other artists with my dad, I would say my dad introduced me to the period of time where, like, Billy Joel was particularly rock-esque. Obviously, that's not all of his albums, but Glass Houses, which I have talked about on this podcast before. He introduced me to Glass Houses. AC/DC is really big between us, I would say. One of their more well-known songs, obviously, like basic songs, is Back in Black, and that's really important to my dad and I. Otherwise, I would say he gives a lot of great one-off songs. I mean, like Foreigner and stuff. I got into that a lot from him. So parents, in terms of rock and just taking me out of my Gen Z bubble, the songs that were so commonplace to them when they were younger are my favorite songs that I wouldn't have found otherwise in any other avenue sometimes. So I always really appreciate just kind of sitting down with them, whether I'm in the car with them or something. I do this if I'm kind of one-on-one with my parents on going somewhere for a long ride. We'll try to parse through some new music, and those always create fond memories as well. Okay, so when I was talking about going down rabbit holes earlier on Spotify, kind of circling back to that sentiment real quick, I would say one of the most popular ways, actually, probably, I find my music is going down a rabbit hole of the artist's radio. So I'll start with an artist who I would consider I know really well, and I will go to their radio. So for example, Lord Radio. You know how they have the bottom of that, if you scroll past their discography on Spotify, it'll give you generated, and that's kind of more tailored to your algorithm still. Like, my Lord Radio is not going to be the same as your Lord Radio, which again I find quite annoying. But so click on that, and then I will find an artist that I've heard of within that playlist but don't know super well. I might know 5 of their songs, but I know I like them. So I'll click on that artist and I'll scroll down past their discography and I'll go to that, like, medium well-known artist radio, click on that radio, and then I'll do it one more time. On the third time, normally, because I don't listen to this artist that much and you're just kind of getting degrees away from your algorithm and what your algorithm knows that you like, normally on that third click of the radio, I find a playlist, just a compilation of songs where if there's 20 of them, I probably only know 5. And that's awesome. I did this yesterday actually, and I discovered a few bands that I really enjoyed. So yeah, start with pretty mainstream and work your way to a more niche lineup. I would say that's a great idea, again, if you're looking for a certain sound, a certain mood, and then Spotify will kind of group in to certain degrees that same sound. Okay, one of my more favorite ways, which I don't get to do too much now, is going to openers of the openers at concerts. So a lot of times at concerts there will be 2 openers. I make sure like 99.9% of the time I'm at that first opener. First of all, I just want to get my money's worth. Like, concert tickets are so expensive now. I want to be there for every second that live music is being played. But furthermore, I would say normally the first opener 9 times out of 10 are not incredibly well known. And this is how I actually discovered Leve. If you know, she's Grammy winning, actually. I almost said Grammy nominated. I'm pretty sure she's Grammy winning for a jazz pop album. Yeah, Icelandic artist. She's great. She's also incredibly funny. I just love her presence online. But so this is actually how I discovered Leve, who was the opener, if not the opener of the opener, for Alexander 23. And this is when Alexander 23 was in Philly at the Fillmore. But the Fillmore is a venue that it has a downstairs, which is a lot bigger than the upstairs. And so there was an upstairs venue that probably is like 200, 250 people, I would estimate. And so I was there for the opener. Not everyone was there. They were still shuffling in. And so there was no one there 2 years prior to this artist becoming Grammy Award winning. This was right before she really took off. This was my junior year of high school, so this would have been 2022. And I actually took a picture. I brag about this to this day, any chance I get. And it's that I took a picture and I posted it maybe a week after this concert, and I tagged Leve in it. It was in a fall dump that I did. I tagged Leve in it, and she commented on my post. She was verified, I will say, on Instagram at this time, and this was before you could buy that verification. But so she commented something like, "I love a fall dump," with an orange heart and like the cute little smiling crying face. And I'm like, oh my God, Leve is my bestie. And I had like, I don't know, maybe 100 people see this post, if that. But she was one of them, and she commented, and I love her for that. This is also how I discovered Black Star Kids, who was the opener for the opener of Coin, which Rip Coin, unfortunately the band broke up for very valid reasons, might I add. And I'm very much in support of Chase, the main singer of that band. But Black Star Kids opened up for, I don't even remember who was their opener off the top of my head, which, mind you, Coin was one of the best concerts I've seen, and I will die on that hill. That's so underrated, in my opinion, because I have seen over 50 concerts in my life, and I just remember every feeling that I felt during that concert. Their arrangements were great. They did an arrangement of Malibu 1992, if you're familiar with that song, that was different than the recorded version. And they had a guitar solo. Normally I find guitar solos so incredibly annoying at concerts, but they did it right. Perfect amount of time. Not too long, not too short. I just could go on forever about that concert. But so great experience. Their opener of the opener was Black Star Kids, and they have a very specific sound. And I will say I didn't go incredibly deep into their discography, but the 10 songs that I really vibed with to this day. And then also in that same vein, concert playlists are always good. So if you're waiting for an opener to come on or just in between acts, I mean, you're in a place of musical people who have musicality, who have a great ear and just a great, I don't know, audio aesthetic about them. And so normally artists curate the playlist. I know, for example, Harry Styles has like the same pre-playlist. Taylor Swift has the same pre-concert playlist. I don't believe the venue plays the playlist. I am under the impression that it's the artist more times than not who's visiting and playing that night. It is them who curate this lineup. So I don't know. I think that's always really fun, and I get good music from there because, again, if you're there to see an artist with a certain sound, they're probably listening to music that they were inspired by creating that album, for example. And so you're kind of going to get that same vibe if you're ever in a mood for listening to something in particular. Also, Substack. I went through a bit of a Substack phase recently, and I got a lot of good music from there, honestly. Again, because it was kind of a short-lived phase that I would love to get back into, but I just haven't made the time for recently. In that short period of time, I would say I mean, it's hard to not mention music when you're setting tones and doing blogs and it feels a little more informal and stuff like that. People always talk about what music they heard where, or if people have a newsletter, sometimes with that newsletter, they will rope music into it. And so I'll plug Lunch on Friday, which I'm kicking myself for not knowing the of the artist, but Lunch on Friday is her newsletter. You can look that up if you're interested. And every single Friday, she curates a new playlist, and it's about 12 songs, I would say. 12 to 16 seems to be the average. And she has this, you can go on Spotify and it's just a playlist, but I kind of like it because she doesn't continue to add to the playlist. So it's not like each week she adds 12 new songs to it or whatever it may be. She actually replaces the entire playlist, which then is more incentive to engage with it, because if you know it's only going to be there for a week, you want to make sure that you listen to all of it before it's gone. And she does have a really similar vibe, I would say, for lack of a better term, as myself. And so she'll have more of the mainstream or alternative pop that I do enjoy listening to, again, like Lorde, for example. And then with that, she'll have people I've never heard of before at all, but I really trust her judgment and her filtering of music, because the other half of the playlist is stuff that I really rock with and already know. So it's a good balance of what you do and don't know. And again, the incentives to interact with it because it's only there for a week. I just think it was a really clever and cute idea. And I have been listened, and like I have added the playlist. I added the playlist back in February, maybe March. And so since then I've been interacting with it and really liking it. And so just this year, the past few months, that's where I have been getting I would say a handful of music. Pretty nice. Last one, festival lineup sheets. Specifically, the names that are in the small print. This is again a filter of the up and coming. If you don't want something that is quote unquote mainstream, if you're trying to be different and ahead of the curve, which there's no shame in that, honestly, go to festival lineup sheets. This is people's entire job, to do research on people who are up and coming, who have like less than 100K listeners a month. I did this recently with Austin City Limits. Austin City Limits had a great lineup. Again, I'll find myself knowing people in the first, 5, 6 lines. But then when you get to the really small print and you don't know anyone, this is people's jobs. And so I did this recently with Austin City Limits because, again, I was like, the general vibe of this festival is what I'm going for, and it's what I'm in the mood right now. And so I kind of want to go to my liked songs now and see who I found through that, because I did end up looking up a good bit of the small print ones because I was like, oh, I lucked out with this artist, so I'll probably like the next one. Okay, Girl Tones, they're going to Austin City Limits. They have, let's see how many listeners. So Girl Tones has 38.1K monthly listeners. That's not a whole lot compared to the headliners, for example. Then there's a band called The Thing, and I really liked their song Beige Bouquet, and I want to spend more time going through their discography in general. But this is kind of when I was just going on a rampage of let me listen to the top 3, and I'll move on to the next artist. So Beige Bouquet of The Thing, they have 59.8k monthly listeners, and I feel like they're a pretty summery vibe as well. So honestly, if you're really at a loss, look up a festival that you would hypothetically like to go to, a festival that is like tailoring itself to a certain genre or maybe like 3 genres, and go to the small print of that and just start playing around with it. Like go on Spotify, start skimming their discographies, hit a few, go to the choruses, whatever you feel. It's honestly really fun too. Like I do this just when I'm bored and I have like absolutely nothing to do. There's never a bad time to find new music. And so I guarantee you, there are so many people that go to festivals. Even if you only find one artist you like out of the 50 some on that sheet, the 20 you might have looked up, that one artist, I mean, they could be your next favorite. And you could say that you knew them before they got big, because I know a lot of people care about that. I've recently tried to move away from being annoying and pretentious and just being like, oh, I knew them first. It doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. I used to gatekeep, and now I'm posting monthly playlists on my Instagram because I'm like, hey, I actually kind of curated a fire playlist of 80 different vibes, and I think you would like at least one song on here. And no one can say I am a gatekeeper of good music now, because with that, I also find that I can go on aux in the car more and people can enjoy music, because a lot of people, when they're in the car, that's a specific setting where you kind of do like to know the music, and most times you would like to sing in the car. Like, I feel like the time for discovering new music is not behind the driver's seat or in the passenger seat. You know what I mean? So with that, if you know songs that you want to put on the aux but other people don't know them, they're probably not going to be inclined to give you the aux again, or they're just going to be really annoyed. I know my sisters get really annoyed with me when I try to do this, and I always tell them, well, if you listened to the song when you weren't in the car, I guarantee you would like it. And then so when I played it in the car, you would have known it. And oh my gosh, one of my biggest pet peeves is when I do send my family, specifically my sisters, songs. They don't listen to them. Then the song will blow up on TikTok 2-3 months later. They'll send it to me. They'll say, oh, have you heard this song? This is so awesome. And I'll say, yeah, I do recall actually sending that to you months ago, telling you that you would really like it. But here we are. You rarely listen. Don't gatekeep your music, so then that you can play whatever you want, a wide variety of whatever you're feeling in the car, instead of having to think about what everyone else in the car knows. All right, that is all I have for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode, found a new way to find new music or to think about music, possibly. I will leave you with, as always, follow at HBU Hear Me Out on Instagram for more. We also have video episodes on, by we, as if I'm doing this with anyone but myself. We're a community here, okay, guys? We have video episodes on YouTube as well. If you want to rate this podcast 5 stars, hopefully on Spotify, that's always really fun to see. I know a handful of people had done that in the past few months, and that really makes my day, makes me smile. You can also hit the follow button or post notifications, whatever you're really feeling like. I mean, if you're not feeling that at all, don't worry about it. But if you hit that bell, you will know and be reminded that we post every Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. As always, thank you so much for listening and for getting this far into the episode. If you did, I really, really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next week.